Have you ever finally reached a place of peace in your life, only to find yourself feeling, well, strangely bored? It's such a jarring sensation, right? You see, we spend so much of our energy fighting to get away from the drama, the toxic cycles, and those constant fires we always have to put out. We tell ourselves that once we finally reach this calm plateau, everything will be perfect. But then we arrive, and instead of feeling enlightened or blissful, we feel restless. We feel itchy in our own skin. We often mistake this feeling for a lack of purpose or a sign that we're doing something wrong. We look around at our stable relationships and our quiet evenings and we wonder, is this it? Is this what I worked so hard for? I mean, it's a confusing disconnect between the mental health success stories we're told to want and the flat, uninspiring reality we're actually experiencing. But here's the thing we need to understand together. This boredom isn't a setback. It's actually a sign of profound progress. You see, what we're feeling isn't a lack of excitement. It's the absence of chaos. For many of us, our nervous systems have been programmed to survive on high-stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline for years. When that's the only baseline we know, peace doesn't feel like peace. It feels like a void. Essentially, our bodies are feeling homesick for the chaos we just left behind. We've been living in a state of high alert for so long that the quiet feels, well, dangerous, or at the very least, wrong. It's like being a soldier who finally comes home but can't sleep because the silence is just too loud. As we move through this together, we have to recognize that we aren't failing at healing. We're just detoxing. We're going to explore why our brains keep trying to pull us back into the fire and how we can start to retrain ourselves to finally settle into the stillness. We're learning a new language, the language of safety. And it's okay, really, if it takes us a moment to find the words. Let's look at why that uncomfortable quiet is actually the space where real life finally begins. We've all been there, right? Imagine, you finally have a Saturday morning where, well, nothing is wrong. The bills are paid, the house is quiet, and for the first time in a long time, there isn't an immediate fire to put out. But instead of feeling relaxed, we feel twitchy. I mean, there's an itch under our skin we just can't scratch, and the silence starts to feel heavy, almost suffocating. This is the part of healing that no one really warns us about, you know? We spent so many years dreaming of this peace, but now that it's here, we feel like we're failing at it. We look at ourselves in the mirror and wonder why we aren't blissfully happy. Instead, we're restless, irritable, and searching for a problem to solve. We might even find ourselves doing things that, well, make no sense. Reaching for our phones to check on someone who hurt us, scrolling through social media looking for something to be outraged by, or even picking a petty argument with a partner just to break the quiet. It's an uncomfortable truth to admit, but sometimes we create problems where there are none because the void of peace feels more threatening than the chaos of a crisis. We've become so used to living in survival mode that when we finally step out of the trenches, we don't know how to stand up straight. We feel like we've lost our edge, or worse, that we're becoming boring. But here is what we need to remember. That restlessness isn't a sign that we're doing it wrong. It's actually a sign that we're doing it right. We are sitting in the uncomfortable quiet for the very first time. The urge to sabotage our own peace is just our brain's way of trying to return to a normal it understands, even if that normal was painful. We have to ask ourselves, why does our mind try to burn down the very sanctuary we worked years to build? Why is it so hard to just be? To find the answer, we have to look past our emotions and look at our biology. Because the truth is, the reason we can't seem to settle into this peace, it might be because our bodies are actually addicted to the very stress we've been trying to escape.
Think about how we've lived for the last few years, If we've spent most of our lives in survival mode, our bodies have become incredibly efficient at producing cortisol and adrenaline. These aren't just chemicals, they're the fuel we use to get through the day. We've essentially been running our internal engines at redline for so long that our systems have actually forgotten what it's like to idle. What we're feeling right now, this restless, itchy boredom, is actually a form of nervous system withdrawal, right? When we start to heal, we finally stop the constant cycle of drama, overthinking, and crisis management. For the first time, our cortisol levels start to drop. But instead of feeling relieved, our brain starts to panic. It's like we're a soldier who has finally come home from the front lines, but we're still sleeping with one eye open, waiting for an attack that never comes. I mean, we have to look at our internal thermostat. If we grew up or lived in a high-stress environment, our thermostat was set to high alert as the default. Now that we've finally moved into a room that is cool and quiet, our system is confused. It's trying to crank up the heat because it thinks the coolness of peace is actually a sign of danger. We're so used to the heat of the fight that the silence of the solution feels cold. We have to realize that peace isn't the absence of fun, it's the absence of a fight. Our bodies simply need time to learn the difference, We've spent so long equating excitement with anxiety that when the anxiety goes away, we feel like the spark is gone too. But the spark wasn't joy, it was friction. We're essentially retraining our biology to understand that calm is safe. It's a slow process of convincing our subconscious that we don't need to be hypervigilant to stay alive anymore. We're learning to exist without the constant hum of a threat in the background. But as we sit in this new, quiet space, something else starts to happen. Without the noise of the old chaos to distract us, we're left alone with the one person we've spent our whole lives running from. And that's when we realize that the boredom isn't just about biology. It's about what we find. What goes. So, how do we actually start to rewrite this script? We have to begin by recalibrating our internal compass, and that starts with a simple but profound shift in how we talk to ourselves. We need to name the feeling for what it truly is. The next time that heavy restlessness hits, that internal itch that makes us want to jump out of our skin, we have to stop and tell ourselves, I am not bored. I am unregulated in my peace. By using those specific words, right, we take the power away from the anxiety. We're acknowledging that the boredom we feel isn't a sign that something is wrong or missing. It's just our nervous system struggling to adapt to a life without a crisis to solve. We're essentially telling our brains that the storm has passed, even if we're still bracing for impact. Once we've named it, we start the actual work of retraining. We like to call this microdosing stillness. We don't need to sit in a cave for a month to find balance, We just need 5 minutes. We challenge ourselves to sit for just 5 minutes a day without a phone, a podcast, or a distraction. We just exist. In those 5 minutes, we're teaching our bodies a new truth, that quiet is safe. We're showing our subconscious that we can be still and nothing bad will happen. It's like physical therapy for the soul. It might feel uncomfortable or even slightly painful at first, but
but it's how we regain our range of motion. From there, we look for what we call low-stakes joy. For a long time, we might have been addicted to the high-intensity rush of survival, the adrenaline of a deadline, or the chaos of a complicated relationship. To heal, we have to learn to enjoy the subtle notes of life again. This means leaning into hobbies that provide fulfillment without the high-stress payoff. Think of things like gardening, painting, or even just reading a physical book. These activities don't give us that massive, jagged dopamine spike we're used to, but they offer a steady, nourishing glow. We are literally rebuilding our brain's ability to find beauty in the mundane. We're teaching ourselves that a life well lived isn't measured by how many fires we put out, but by how deeply we can inhabit the quiet moments. We're learning to prefer the symphony over the static. But as we start to settle into this new, calmer version of ourselves, we might notice something unexpected. As we change, the world around us starts to shift too. And sometimes, the people who were used to our chaos, well, they weren't quite ready for our peace. Which brings us to a difficult realization. Healing doesn't just change us, it changes every relationship we have. And that transition, it can be the most unsettling part of the entire journey.
As we navigate these shifts in our lives and our relationships, we have to remember that walking this path, well, it isn't a straight line from point A to point B. It's more like learning a whole new language. At first, the silence of a calm life feels foreign, maybe even a little lonely, you know? We might find ourselves searching for those old subtitles of drama or urgency just to feel something familiar. But we want to remind you today, if you feel bored right now, you are actually doing the work. You've successfully moved out of survival mode and into a space where your nervous system can finally catch its breath. That boredom isn't a sign that something is missing. It's proof that the chaos is gone. It's the quiet hum of a life that no longer needs to be saved from itself. As we continue to learn this language of peace together, we'd really love to hear from you. I mean, what are some of the low-stakes joys you've discovered lately? Maybe it's the way the light hits your morning coffee, the specific rhythm of a long walk, or just the luxury of a quiet evening without a crisis to manage. Let's share those small wins in the comments so we can all learn what healing looks like in practice. If this perspective helped you feel a little more at home in your own mind, we invite you to subscribe to Psyche Unveiled and join our community. We're here to keep exploring these quiet corners of the human experience together, one gentle step at a time.